before I came to the US, I knew I was Chinese. The first time I landed here, someone called me Asian. I couldn't relate. Asia is a territory on Earth that represents 50 countries. But then after a while, I hung out with my fellow Asians, and I realized we have so much cultural common ground than other ethnic groups like whites and others in the States. So I accepted this term. I call myself Asian. Then somebody said, "You're a minority." And I said, "Wait a minute, I represent one of the largest populations on Earth. How did I become a minority?" Then realized that in this country, I have become a minority. And lastly, someone says, "I'm a person of color." Again, it took me a while to finally identify this and recognize it, because I found I have so much more in common with Black, brown, and indigenous people in this country because of our shared white dominance. Each of these identities that I have adopted has a special social or political meaning in this country. This morning, let us walk back Asian American history that I had to learn as an immigrant. I'm sure you already know that. First Asians arrived in the US were from Philippines, who landed in the California coast in 1587 as part of the Spanish galleon crew. During the 16th to 18th century, Filipinos settled down in Louisiana before this country has become a country. Then early 19th century, Chinese and Indian merchants came, followed by Chinese laborers during the gold rush era. In the late 19th century, Chinese and Japanese immigrants played a major role in building the transcontinental railway and California agriculture, but then faced backlash from white workers. This led to the first federal law restricting immigration. It's called the Chinese Exclusion Act, established in 1882. And they refused to let Chinese labor come in for 10 years. And they would not acknowledge Chinese residents as citizenship. And then this law became Asian Exclusion Act to cover other Asians. This law was in the book for 60 years until it was repealed in 1942. But the quota, the strict quota, still remain. After generations of Filipinos were settled in the US, they were still seen as savage. In 1904, St. Louis World's Fair, 1,100 Filipinos were brought into the US and put on display in the human zoo. There was particular a group of people, these are Igorot tribe. And it was a $1.5 million at that time federal project to justify American imperialism by portraying Filipinos really need American civilization after Filipino-American War. This exhibit was intended to display colonial success and prove the superiority of white Americans. There used to be two main gateways for immigrants to come to the United States: Ellis Island on the East Coast and Angel Island on the West Coast. You all know about it. You may not know there's a difference between these two centers. Ellis Island is a welcoming center for Europeans, usually process immigrants very quickly, sometimes in just a few hours. But Angel Island is functioned as a detention center that enforced Chinese Exclusion Act that subject immigrants to intense interrogation and longer detention and harsh conditions. While Asians had been discriminated against continuously, but they were blended in to the white category when it comes to census data. It was not until 1980 and 1990 census that Asian finally was fully established as a separate category of human beings from whites. Blending Asian and white population data in census reporting was often called data aggregation or whitening. When whitening took place, that makes Asians disappeared, and their experience and social issues become invisible. Just because they were counted as whites, it did not mean they were treated as equal. When you become invisible because the myth of being a model minority implies that all Asians are just successful, hardworking, and good at math, especially. I'm not, okay, so. Creating a false image that universal success and overlooking the disparity in socioeconomic struggles and mental health needs in various Asian groups. Data aggregation can make it difficult for policymakers to allocate funding to specific community needs. Census data is used to draw political districts. Whitening jeopardizes Asian American voting rights law and potentially reduce their ability to elect candidates of their choice. Look like voting rights are being attacked all over again now. After Asian Americans became a separate group from the whites, they're still rarely featured in the mainstream media or leadership position, leading to the glass ceiling in professional setting. For a long time, they were stereotyped as being good workers but not good leaders. In the national dialogue on race, Asians are seldom included, but not being seen as a person of color, yet never benefiting from being whitened either, their invisibility is complete. The only time Asians become visible seems to be when they were seen as enemies. During World War II, the US government incarcerated over 120,000 Japanese Americans in two major camps in California, Manzanar and Tule Lake. These citizens have lost their homes, their business, their property, and their American identity. Among all the harsh treatment they received, the hardest one is probably being forced to take loyalty tests. But they endure. To this day, many survivors kept their silence. Don't forget, at the same time, 442nd Regimental Combat Team was a segregated U.S. Army unit composed of 14,000 Japanese American men volunteering from the camp to fight in Europe in 1943, while their families are confined in the camp. This was the most decorated unit for its size and the length of service in American history. The poem Nikki just read was written by Lawson Inada, who as a child was sent to the camp with his parents. In his poem, he pointed at the vivid pictures of these barbed wires that used to build a camp to fence people in. Having listened to this poem many times, I can see the same shiny wires used for the detention camp for the new immigrants that this current regime is rounding up. With the high anti-Japanese sentiment during the failing auto industry, Vincent Chin, a Chinese-American draftsman, was attending his bachelor party in Detroit on June 8, 1982, and get into a scuffle with two unemployed auto workers. They chased him down several streets and beat him to death. The killers were fined $3,000 with probation, no jail time. This incident ignited a nationwide Asian American justice movement. Despite all the contributions that Asian Americans make to this country, including science, technology, innovation, medicine, arts, and culture, and directly impact the US economy, seems like History of Anti-Asian Violence from Asian Exclusion Act, Japanese internment camp, murder of Vincent Chen, all the way to the most recent Asian hate crime during the COVID-19 pandemic just a few years ago, show us these are not some isolated incident, but a part of 150 years pattern of oppression. In today's special song, American Dream, the singer calls out, hate cannot be the face of American dream. The reality is that we don't keep this in our consciousness. Hate will show up again and again. And the American dream is only for some people, not for all. This month we celebrate Asian American, also Pacific Islanders heritage. Asian and Pacific Islanders were combined to identify as Pan-Asian in 1980s because they shared ancestral connection and discrimination and colonialism. This combination aims at increasing their representation and power when they are often marginalized together. While grouping has helped build political power, we need to recognize the unique Pacific Islanders issue, giving the profound cultural, demographic, and historical differences between Asian nations and Pacific Island nations, so that we don't create more invisibility among the subgroups. Once again, I had to learn about this part of history of exclusion. American colonialism of Asia and Pacific Islander began in full swing in late 19th century, driven by the concept called manifest destiny. I don't know how many of you have heard about this term. It was a 19th century belief that the United States was divinely ordained and destined by God to expand its dominance and spread democracy and enhance capitalism across the entire North American continent from the Atlantic to the Pacific. This imperial period involved direct seizure of territories, overthrowing indigenous government, and establishing permanent military bases. Key territory colonized and occupied include Hawaii, the Philippines, Guam, American Samoa, and Wake Island, often resulting in controlling the political system and also benefited from the very lucrative economic systems. And the US implemented Western education standard and also established English as a language to assimilate colonized population, often suppressing the indigenous people. After World War II, the Marshall Islands were used for extensive nuclear testing from 1946 to 1958, resulting in lasting health and environmental damage to the native population. While the Philippines have become an independent country and Hawaii has become US state, American Samoans continue to be US nationals, but never US citizens. And residents from Guam, Northern Mariana Island, and US Virgin Islands are US citizens, but cannot vote for president and having no voting representation in Congress. The combined systematic oppression of Asian and Pacific Islanders have continued to make this group of people seem as not fully belonging to this land. I am clear that I am an immigrant. I came from somewhere else. Even if my naturalized citizen status can be at risk in the current climate, but to other Asian Pacific Americans whose ancestors have been here since the 1800s, this question, where are you from, can cause a lot of pain. UC Berkeley professor Ron Tataki wrote a book called Strangers from a Different Shore. In it, he shared a personal story. As a young man, he was in a convenience store. This white guy came up to him and said, "Where are you from?" Ron says, "I'm from Sacramento." The guy says, no, where are you really from?" So Ron used the next few minutes sharing the history of his family, including his grandparents coming from Japan, built a farm in Pacific Northwest, and his parents continued the legacy in Central California. After that, the man said, "Boy, you speak real good English." So, how many generations does it take for us Asians to be seen as real Americans? Who is real American anyway? In the article written by Orr Gotham in Real Life, May 5, 2022, he said, romanticization of American heritage is not new. But what is American heritage? Major fashion companies such as Abercrombie and Fitch build their entire brand image as a white, thin, athletic man. And the image conjured in my mind has an all-American leading man who is at least 6 feet tall, and the phrase all-American describes a white person. To support this theory, Gotham turned to Google Images and typed in all-American guy. 38 images appeared before he saw a person of color. Gotham continued, "What's so strange about my disconnect to the above image is that on paper, I couldn't be any more American. I was born in California. My parents are American. They embody the ultimate American dreams. I live in America, work for an American company, I pay taxes, I vote. Why then am I and millions of others like me excluded from the mass narrative about Americanness?" It reinforced the idea that for any person of color, Americanness cannot really be achieved through naturalization and even birthright. This notion is bolstered anytime someone is told to go back to their country, even when their country is the United States. I have been in the US since 1971. Many times I've been told to go back to where I came from. During my corporate life, career, I was excluded from special project and promotion. I was told that I have communication problem. When I became a consultant for major corporations, I noticed that often when the Asian scientist was making a presentation, the boss would send other staff to go shadow him or her. A couple of times when I was hired to teach realtors in LA how to do business with Asian customers, I would have white realtors picketing outside of my classroom. And when the white resident found out there would be a Buddhist temple being built in the neighborhood, they jammed the city hall and protested. Asian and Pacific Islander continue to be discriminated against because mainstream society assumed they will not stand up and fight back because of their cultural tradition. But Asian Pacific Islander have been fighting back, perhaps not by being the loudest, but with endurance in the civil rights movement since the 60s. Most recently, during the pandemic, Asian hate crime arose. Asian youth organized, patrolled the streets, escorted their elders home. After hearing about Asian Pacific history, I want you to know that there is much more than pain my people and I are carrying. We carry a lot of pride in our cultural roots. Even when an Asian Pacific American is third or fourth generation American, they still have this lineage flowing in their vein. Compared to white Americans, we tend to be more group-oriented. Children are truly never leave home, even they're geographically separate. This sense of connection, belonging, is like sitting in our mother's womb, full of warm water, make us feel safe. This love and obligation to family and endurance help us survive through thousands of years of struggle and hardship. The United States is only 250 years old. It has a lot to learn from us. Before I close, I would like to ask you the following question. First, how often has your American identity been questioned? Second, how many of you have Asian Pacific American friends? Third, What have you learned from their Asian American story? We UUs take pride in our progressive values, but these values are not just nice words on the wall. We need to practice them every day and acknowledge that we have a long way to go to help build a better homeland for all. This work starts with us. Namaste, amen, blessed be.